this is my Volkswagen Fox, and it still doesn't have an engine. And that's because in the previous video, I bought this car for just £700 with a very ambitious plan. And the first step of that plan was to completely remove the standard 70 horsepower engine from the car, which left the engine bay looking like this. So over the coming weeks, the goal is to fit this legendary 1.8 turbo GTI engine into the Fox, and then do some power upgrades to create a 300 brake horsepower Volkswagen Fox GTI, which has the looks of a granny car and the speed of a Lamborghini. Now, the plan in this video is to get my hands on that powerful GTI engine and all of the parts I need to get this engine swap done, and on top of that, I want to try and get the engine in. But before we do any of that, the first job is to get this wiring loom out of the Fox, because it needs a fair bit of modification to make it work with the GTI engine, so let's get it out. So the whole body loom needs to come out, and the first step of doing that is to remove the scuttle panel. Just needs a yank. Oh my God. It's like an ecosystem down there. The amount of organisms living in my Fox. Right, scuttle panel off. So now the scuttle panel is off, we can see that we need to unplug the indicators that are in the wings, and to do that we need to take off the wheel arch liners. So let's get the car on the ramp. There we go. Oh my God, look at the ecosystem in here. How many spiders do you reckon? I genuinely think there was a whole population of spiders. So now that the arch liner was out, I could access the indicator bulb and I could remove it from behind. I also had to take off the ABS sensor, which sits behind our brake disc. So as usual, the ABS was an absolute nightmare to remove, but it's now out and we can do the same on the other side. So the next step is to unplug everything in the engine bay, such as the headlights, the coolant reservoir, the brake fluid reservoir, and absolutely every electronic component in the engine bay. To get to some of the loom, which was a little bit inaccessible, I also had to remove the front bumper. There you go. Off. Faceless Jazz. Nope, that's not the Jazz, that's the Fox. This is what I couldn't get to earlier. They are very, very in there, but now the bumper's off, this should be a lot easier to remove. So now all of that has been undone, the next step is to remove this panel, which the scuttle panel kind of sits on. So the bolts are under here, and I'm pretty sure they're T30s and T25s. I'm just trying to figure out how to get this off. But to be honest, I am tired, it's getting late, and working on cars is just absolutely knackering sometimes. Oh my God, what a mental coincidence. Two types of energy drinks have just appeared. A Holy and a bad caffeinated energy drink. Which one should I drink?
Drink the high caffeinated energy drink. Since when have you cared about your health? And it will give you a crazy energy boost for the next hour.
Yeah, but they are bad for you and they give me headaches and they're also pretty expensive. Honestly, Jack, just have the Holy. You won't crash after an hour. It's way healthier. It's got vitamins, minerals, new caf, nootropics, and all of the good ingredients to help you focus, and it will definitely help you have a more productive evening. Yes, that is true. And also, because these are in sachets, they're also actually really affordable because they're cheap per drink. So I'm glad I ignored the devil on my shoulder. This is definitely gonna make me feel better in the long run. The way it works is you open up the packet, find your favorite flavor, which for me is Gorilla Grape. You open it up, pour the powder in, pour in some water, give it a shake, and then just like that, you have a much cheaper, healthier alternative to high caffeinated energy drinks. If you want to get your hands on some Holy, I will leave a link in the description of this video and use one of these two codes on the screen right now to get some money off. So thanks Holy for sponsoring today's video. Let's get this loom out. What else is holding this on? I'm struggling to think what's holding that on. It's got to be just like sealant or something. Whilst I figure out what's holding that on, make sure to smash that subscribe button if you haven't already, and like the video if you enjoy this type of content, because we've got so much more coming in the future. Maybe if I have some Holy, I'll be able to get it off. All right, I think it'll come off now. If we just give it lots of wiggles. I'm an idiot. I'm so sorry. I'm a massive idiot. I'm a huge idiot. There's literally one bolt just sat there going, you forgot about me. Yeah, see, look what happens when you actually undo all the bolts. It actually, like, it comes out then. Great success. So now that metal panel was off, all I had left to do was to disconnect the remaining loom, which was essentially just a few clips, some plugs I still had to undo, and some bolts. And once all of that was done, the loom was then ready to come out. Oh, I think we've done it. That was the least elegant removal of a loom ever. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is the loom out. We can now send this off to Leeds, I think, to get this completely modified to work with our GTI engine. That's a job well done. So now that loom is out of the Fox, you can see the engine bay, it looks even more empty. And once that loom comes back from the person who's doing some modifications to it, we'll be ready to fit the engine. Now, you are probably wondering, where is the engine and have you bought one? Well, the answer is no. I bought a car instead. Now, many of you are probably hoping that I'm not going to strip this perfectly good Polo GTI to pieces, but that is exactly what I'm going to do. I bought this car for £2,000, and using this car as a donor is the fastest and most cost-effective way to build the Fox GTI. And this is because the Polo is the same platform as the Fox, so we can use so much from this car, like the engine, the mounts, the drive shafts, the subframe, the hubs, the front brakes, the wiring loom, the wheels, the interior, and we can even do a rear brake disc conversion on the Fox, as currently it has drum brakes. A lot of you might be against it, but this is the best method to create a really unique build with this Fox and to fulfill my aspiration of absolutely smoking modern hot hatches in what most would consider a granny car. On top of all of that, this engine has been remapped to 217 brake horsepower. I've driven it, it's not slow. So before we take this car to pieces, let's quickly see what it does a 0 to 60 in. So we are now on a nice straight road to do a 0 to 60. My friend is sat in the back seat and he's going to be timing it with the phone. Count me in, Jav.
Ready, set, go.
$60. How was that?
6.56.
6.56. Okay, that is decent. I'm happy with that. This car does feel a bit faster, but we now have something to shoot for when we get this engine in the Fox. We are going to be doing a hybrid turbo to the Fox as well, so we're going to be shooting for 300 horsepower and a 0 to 60. That is a lot faster than 6.56. So now the Polo's on the ramp, we can begin with getting out the engine. A good thing about doing this is that it is exactly the same as the Fox, meaning I will be able to smash through this because I know what I'm doing, I've done it before. So yeah, we're gonna start with getting off this subframe. So removing this is fairly simple. There's just a few bolts that connect the steering rack to the subframe that you've got to undo first, and then a few more on the ball joints on either side. And once all of those have been undone, there are 4 main bolts mounting the subframe to the chassis of the car, and once those have been undone, it can then be lowered down. So now the subframe is off, we can get on with removing the front section of the exhaust. Oh, yes! Mate, look at that tool. That's 2 extensions, a wiggly thing. Yes. There we go. Whew. There we go. One exhaust. The next things to remove were the drive shafts. Almost a good catch. There you are. Nice. Now the next thing I wanted to do was to remove the front bumper so I could have better access to the AC condenser, the radiator and the intercooler. So now the bumper is off, we can see the intercooler, the AC condenser, and the radiator. This definitely has an aftermarket intercooler. As you can see, it is very thick, and there is a faint bit of writing saying AirTech, meaning the previous owner did spend a bit of money on this. Now, you can see if you follow it down, all of these boost pipes, essentially the turbo is up there, all of the pressured air comes through here, whoosh, and then into the bottom of the intercooler where it comes round, it gets cooled down by the oncoming air, and then it comes down around here into our intake manifold. So that's basically how it works. We now need to get off this intercooler, all of the boost piping, and then I think we can take off the battery. So as for removing this intercooler, it couldn't be more simple. The only things you have to do is to make sure all of the boost pipes are disconnected, which involves undoing all of the Jubilee clips, and then there are just 4 bolts mounting the intercooler into place. And once it was off, I could then remove the crash bar, the headlights, and the battery.
Oh my God, I can't believe you caught me on the phone with him.
And once that was all off, it was then time to remove the rad pack.
Just felt like it was running thick in here for me.
Oh my God, that took ages.
I must admit there was something.
So we are really nearly there with getting this engine out. The last little bit is the very fiddly, annoying bit which I absolutely hate, and that is disconnecting the whole wiring loom and breaking a load of the clips whilst I'm at it. And aside from that, we had to remove the heater matrix pipes, the gear selector cables, the clutch line, and a few other minor bits connecting the engine to the car. And once all of that was done, the engine was ready to come out. So everything in the engine bay has now been disconnected, and we're going to use the same technique we used in the previous video on the Fox, where we put a pallet underneath the engine, disconnect the engine, let it rest on the pallet, and then lift the car up over the engine, which will then be on the pallet, if that makes sense. So let's give it a go. So yeah, down she comes. Keep going all the way. Oh, is this pallet gonna be strong enough? Cool, all right, that'll do. It's out, and before you even go up, I should be able to just pull it forward because there's nothing stopping it from coming forward, so. Apart from the fact that it's really heavy. Right, I think it's ready to go up. Yeah, go, send it. So that is one GTI engine removed from the Polo. Now, we still have stuff to remove from this car, like this whole body loom, and we still have to get the engine in that car. But before we do any of that, we need to try and move this thing. Jesus. Hello, Alpa.
How may I help?
Please, may I borrow a pump truck? I've got a very heavy engine which I need to move. Oh my gosh. That is what I need. Beautiful. Oh, that makes this so much easier. So the engine is out of the way, and I can start with removing the body loom from the Polo, the exact same as I did on the Fox, but this time I'm not going to show you, I'm just going to do it. 3, 2, 1. One Polo loom. Time for the world's first downgrade engine swap. We're putting the 1.4 in the Polo just because it gets it out of the way, but I thought I'd film it because it is quite funny, so let's get it in. So essentially, the reasoning behind putting the Fox's 1.4 into the Polo is because when I come to scrap the Polo eventually, I can also do it with this engine all at the same time and get it all out of the way at the same time. But whilst I'm at it, I am also probably making the world's first Polo GTI with a 1.4 litre engine. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the world's first 1.4 engine swap Polo GTI. The most pointless downgrade of an engine swap ever. But now it is time for the big one. We need to do this exact same process, but with the Fox and the 1.8T. However, before we could get the engine into the Fox, we firstly had to do a few things. We had to take the Fox's subframe off and swap it with the Polo subframe, because the Fox's subframe wouldn't work with the 1.8T engine. We also had to put the Fox's drive shafts and its subframe onto the Polo so that we could then get the car rolling.
I've been working 9 to 5 while you stay home in bed. You said you would get a job so you can pay the rent.
Once all of that had been fitted to the Polo, we could then roll it off the ramp, and once the Polo was out of the way, we could then roll the Fox onto the ramp and get it up in the air. And then we had to take the Fox's subframe, which was the old Polo subframe, off one last time so that we could get the engine fitted.
On my side, boy, tell me where were you tonight?
We are so good today. Oh my god. Okay, I tell you what. Right, ready? You do it, you row it. So after getting the new GTI engine roughly in the right place to fit in the Fox, all we had to do was make small little adjustments to line up the engine mounts, and then we could get the engine bolted in.
The storm that you brew, baby, you know what I'm saying is true. Man will remember that boy is a fool. The things that you said told me that they was washing up.
And ladies and gentlemen, after getting the engine mount bolts done up, the 1.8 turbo GTI engine was in the Fox.
Crazy times, can't you feel it? Is there a reason for it all? Maybe take a ride on this pipe train.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you the Fox GTI. The 1.8 turbo GTI engine is in. As you can see, it is very much in the engine bay and it is looking amazing. I cannot wait to get this started and driving. Now, the reason why we can't do that in this video is because the looms haven't come back from being modified yet. So once those are back, we'll be able to get everything connected up and get the car started and hopefully driving in the next video. So if you can't wait for that, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like this video if you've enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.